Now, our next speaker is a true legend in this field of ecology and environmental science. It is my true privilege to introduce Dr. Madhav Gadgil, a man whose contributions have profoundly influenced biodiversity conservation, environmental policy, and sustainable development. Dr. Madhav Gadgil is the founder of Center for Ecological Sciences at IISc Bangalore and an architect of the Western Ghats Ecology Expert Panel, also known as the Gadgil Report. His groundbreaking work has helped shape India's conservation policies, bringing scientific rigor and community participation in environmental governance. And today, we are proud that his work has not just been acknowledged nationally but globally. Dr. Gadgil was recently honored with the Champions of the Earth Award by the United Nations as the highest environmental honor. Please put your hands together for the Champion of the Earth, Dr. Madhav Gadgil.
Namaskar. Thank you very much for this opportunity to share some of my concrete experiences. I am a field ecologist, and what I would like to talk about is what I have seen in the context of this climate emergency. And there are so many different aspects that I will have to restrict to a few major issues, which I will try to place before you. The next slide, please. So the first one is, it has been talked about a lot also here, that with the global warming, the seas are getting hotter and hotter. And although there is this enormous store of water in our world's oceans, the warming has gone to the level that the sea level temperature is increasing clearly, and there is a rise in the sea level all along, particularly in the tropics. Now that has led to very major changes in the behavior of the atmosphere over the seas. For instance, the cyclones were primarily restricted in the 15-20 years ago to the Bay of Bengal. But since then, there has been a shift. Of course, the Bay of Bengal cyclones continue, but a greater and greater proportion of cyclones is now being formed in the Arabian Sea. And in particular, we have supercyclonic winds, and they have, earlier they had been, when formed in the Arabian Sea, moved towards Arabia, but now some of them are coming and hitting the west coast. We had our own experiences. There was this Nisarga supercyclone which hit Maharashtra coast, in fact, on 3rd June 2020, and Taukte in 2021 off the Maharashtra coast. And both these had major impacts. In particular, the Nisarga cyclone and its impact. I have a lot of friends in the Konkan area, especially Raigad district, where it hit the coast, and they have vividly describing how the cyclone impacted the coastal vegetation and both the natural vegetation such as mangrove as well as the coconut orchards and other man-made vegetation. Very notably, earlier the track was predicted so that Nisarga might have hit the Tarapur nuclear power station. Fortunately, that did not happen. But there was a clear threat that this is what might happen. On the west coast, we have Tarapur. Then there is also the Jaitapur nuclear facility. There are, of course, major ports such as Vasco da Gama port in Goa and the recently coming up, Vizhinjam port in Kerala. Now, as time goes and as more and more super cyclones begin to hit west coast, which is certainly possible, then there is serious danger of many things, including if the nuclear power stations are affected, then there will be leakage of radioactive waste into the sea, and that will have enormous consequences for the marine environment and marine life over a long time period. And this is not just a distant possibility, it is a certainly real threat that over the next 10, 15 years, one of these power stations, nuclear power stations, will be hit by another super cyclone, the way the frequency of these super cyclones is increasing. Vasco da Gama port in Goa, now there are very interesting controversy had been going on. The port is being deepened to bring in vessels carrying coal. And the Pollution Control Board, regretfully our pollution control boards do not generally give honest data. They are continuously manipulating data to show that pollution is far less than what it is. I have lots of concrete evidence of this, which I have documented also, including in official reports, such as Western Ghat Ecology Expert Panel report. But in case of Vasco da Gama, the Pollution Control Board strongly recommended against this deepening. What happened? The government decided to neglect this. The coal is being imported at the behest of three major investors in India. I need not name them. They are the three richest in the concerns, industrial, whatever, private bodies of India. So they are the ones who are interested in this coal being imported, and for what? To set up coal-based power plants on the Deccan Plateau area of Karnataka, which means that from Vasco da Gama port through to the up Ghat, there will have to be a railway line carrying the coal. The railway line is going to go through a national park. And we are talking about, and presumably the forest department is committed to protecting the natural ecosystem, the wildlife of these national parks. The national park involved in this case is Mole National Park, but forest department is keeping completely quiet. It is not protesting in any way. And the railway line is going through the national park and then climbing the hills to take, as I said, the coal to the Deccan Plateau area of Karnataka, where the coal-based power plant will be set up. This is not being done. The industrialists are certainly enormously powerful and wealthy. They are not spending a single paisa on this railway line. Government is subsidizing at our everybody's cost, the citizens' cost, the entire railway project. Some 10,000 crore rupees subsidy has been given to take the railway line. So this is the way the actual actions on ground are happening. What does this burning of coal imply? The burning of the coal implies certainly that there would be more and more of what are called aerosol particles in the atmosphere. These are small, minute particles which are responsible for what has been called the Asian brown cloud. India is clothed, covered now with an atmosphere which is laden with these aerosols and which has its own serious impacts. I will come to that. Secondly, the Willingham port, for instance, there is a lot of public protest against it because of the enormous demand for rock metal and then man-made sand that the port has generated, which has led to proliferation of rock quarries in Kerala. These rock quarries have had multiple impacts. You might recall that on July 30th last year, 2024, there was this major landslide in Wayanad, which killed for the first time such a large number of people. Over 400 people died in that landslide. So people began to think about that landslide. And what is happening is that the hills, the whole Western Ghats actually, from Maharashtra through Kerala, the hills have been rendered fragile by the blasting that has gone on in the enormous number, uncounted number, in fact, of rock quarries on the Western Ghats. Kerala is a state where they try to look at it. There is a official report of Kerala Legislative Assembly that 95% of the rock quarries are illegal. And they are making enormous amount of money. Very little investment is needed. A lot of profit is made. And the consequences, amongst other things, major landslides which have increased in frequency in recent years. There is good study from a group from Pune itself, which has shown that between 2010 to 2020, the frequency of landslides, not just these big ones which kill so many people, but small, medium and large landslides, has increased over 10 years by 100-folds. And it is going to increase further the way things are going. The next slide, please. Yes. So, what does this carbon produced by our coal plants and carbon, the rock, minute rock particles which are result of the rock quarry, especially they are making man-made sand by powdering the rock into fine particles. What happens? Scientific studies have shown that in aerosol-laid air, the water vapor condenses in a way that very large water droplets are formed, and that leads to intense rain over very short period. So in absence of these aerosols, what would have happened is a drizzle of rain over 4 or 5 hours. Now there is an intense cloud burst and intense rain over 30 minutes or so. And this kind of intense rainfall events, which have again been rapidly increasing, has serious implications in terms of floods. The West Coast rivers are now showing increasingly major floods, and then landslides number of them has increased rapidly, as I said, between 2010 to 2020, 100-fold. And there is also breaching of bunds and collapse of buildings, which has been now, in particular in 2021, both in Konkan area and in Kerala, there was this large disasters. In Kerala in 2018 onwards, there have been floods and problems. So these are some of the ecological consequences of climate change, which is then impacts are significantly multiplied by the way the whole society, the polity, the economy handles the situation. I would like to talk about just one other aspect. Next slide, please, of climate change. These are melting of glaciers. That there is now substantial evidence, continual evidence, that it's not just the melting of the Antarctic and the Arctic polar ice, but in our own Himalayas, all over, there is melting of ice, and this means that the glaciers are slowly being reduced, and with that, the water supply which comes from these glaciers to our major rivers like Ganga, Brahmaputra, and its tributaries like Gadgil and Teesta and so on, that water supply is getting affected, and slowly the rivers will have less and less water in them, which will have its own quite serious impacts. Excuse me. One of the major impacts would be in this river pollution and increasing levels of pollution, because there is less water to take off, remove the pollution, flush it out of the rivers. Now, this pollution all over India is a serious problem. Almost no river in India, even the smaller rivers, are any more free of pollution. We have in Maharashtra, our Vithala worship and the Varkaris, and talking of Indrayani and Bhima, and how on the banks of, you have Dehu and Alandi and then Pandharpur on the banks of these rivers. What is the state of these rivers? Indrayani is now full of poisonous foam, and the famous Doha, the pool in the Indrayani river, where Sant Tukaram's Gatha was thrown, that when I was a young boy, I had visited that, and it was full of these great bhasir fish. Now, at least since last 20 years, the bhasir fish has completely gone. This Dehu Doha is in the grip of serious pollution. And what is being done? Well, what is being done is there is a Mobi Indrayani governmental project, and they pay a lot of money to some Japanese consultant to come and tell us about what to do with Indrayani. And then there is a lot of investment in various schemes. And what does that investment lead to? Let me just conclude by telling my experience in another context, the Namomi Ganga project. There has been this Namomi Ganga project also going on. And I have a good friend in Patna University, Ravindra Kumar. He has been very interested in the aquatic life on the Ganga, especially this Gangetic dolphin. So and he has been working with the local fishing people. I told him that one of my dreams is to actually spend the night sleeping on a sand bank by the Ganga river. After all, we hear so much from our childhood about Ganga and the sacred Ganga, and I'm very much would like to spend more time on Ganga and, as I said, spend the night on one of the sandbanks of Ganga. He said that is very easily arranged. I have some lot of fishermen friends who will take us in their launch on Ganga, and we will go upstream to where the Son River, I think it was, the Son River meets Ganga. There we will stop, spend the night, and the next day they will switch off the engines. Downstream we will just float leisurely. We did that. And I was, of course, very much interested. I was talking to the fishermen what was happening. The Ganga continues awfully polluted. There are every 10 kilometers or so on the Ganga sewage treatment plants. And what is happening to the sewage treatment plants? A lot of money is spent in setting up those plants, but there is no electricity to run them. So we actually saw also, and Ravindra Kumar, as I said, he is constantly working there in that area. He says, yes, none of them operate because there is no electricity supply available to these sewage treatment plants. And a lot of money is spent, and the government will tell, oh, we invested 79,000 crores in treating pollution, sewage which is flowing into Ganga, and all the 79,000 crores have gone down the drain because the sewage is not being treated. Of course, Pune River and our Bhima, there is all this kind of story we are also familiar with. And this is what with the Namomi Indrayani project will also be happening. So the fishermen said, with that, of course, the fish, which they love to fish, and the turtles, and then the dolphins. This is a very interesting animal. It is declared the national aquatic animal of India. They are all suffering badly. And with the declining fisheries, what can fishermen do? Well, the fishermen said that we have no other option left once we cannot obtain sufficient livelihood from fishing than to start mining the sand on the bottom of the Ganga River. And there is, of course, a law prohibiting sand mining in Ganga. They said, well, the law is there. And we saw actually with our eyes, as I said, as we went towards Son, that just outside Patna, about 10 kilometers from there onwards, sand was being mined regularly. And that sand which is being mined is, of course, used in the huge number of buildings and so on, which are coming up all over that area and in the rest of our country. This is also happening. Vashelkarji in Goa, the Goanese fishermen have also told me that with the kind of destruction of the fish life in Goa with mines and various other problems, their next option is mining sand. So when you start mining sand, which is happening in Mandavi River, I have myself gone with the fishermen on Mandavi River in Goa, it not only now means less fish, but also the bottom-dwelling cockles and mussels and so on, which people are, of course, very fond of as very good food. They are also going off. So there is this multiplicity of ecological impacts with the climate change, and as I said, the impacts go spreading in various ways, and because of various kinds of economic, administrative, political forces that are operating. Of course, we have to do something about it, I have no immediate solutions except that as a scientist I can carefully document in specific detail what is going on, which I have been doing. And amongst other things I must share with you, the Western Ghat Ecology Expert Panel report, when it was released in 2011, the government wanted to suppress it and say it will not, should not be allowed to come out. Firstly, that it was anti-development. Okay, these are the developments which we had talked about, which are leading to all these landslides and killing huge number of people in India. And the second very interesting claim by the government was that the Western Ghat Ecology Expert Panel report is against national security. I do not know how it was. When this case went to Delhi High Court, they ridiculed it. They said, what the hell? I mean, you don't want to release the report? Then give some decent rationale. Don't make such absurd claim that this report about the ecological situation on the Western Ghat is against national security. And they turned it down. So the report was released. Again, the government willy-nilly had to release it. It put it on its website. And of course, that was unfortunate as far as government was concerned. And it was put on the website in 2012 finally. And in 2015 it is removed. There is no, people cannot have access to the report. But fortunately, people now have access to information in different ways, and it is available on internet archives, and people are reading it. Anyway, so these are how things are going on. As I said, as a scientist, all I can talk about is facts and what is happening. Thanks for the opportunity to talk about it. I greatly appreciate this occasion, and in terms of climate emergency, we have a great deal to ponder, think about. Thank you very much. Namaskar.
Thank you so much, sir, for an inspiring session. I would like to now invite Professor Amitav Malik on stage to provide a token of appreciation to Dr. Madhav Gadgil.